In the summer of 1997, a network of autonomous hydrophones moored in the deep sound channel of the equatorial Pacific Ocean recorded a sound none of the engineers running the network had ever heard before. It arrived simultaneously at hydrophones more than 5,000 kilometers apart. It swept downward through the very low frequency band over about a minute. Back calculated for the distance, it was the loudest non-seismic sound the network had ever picked up. The team that operated the network called it the Bloop. 29 years later, the case is officially resolved, and the principal scientist still has doubts. This is the cold archive. Begin with the instrument. The sound surveillance system, known as SOSUS, was a Cold War network of underwater listening posts. The United States Navy deployed it in the 1950s to track Soviet submarines crossing the deep ocean basins. In 1991, with the Cold War ending and the Navy's interest in the system diminishing, parts of SOSUS were declassified and transferred to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration for civilian oceanographic research. NOAA's Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory in Newport, Oregon, took over the analytical work. They also deployed their own autonomous hydrophone array across the equatorial Pacific. 6 self-recording units anchored in the deep sound channel. By 1997, the array had been running continuously for 6 years. Its catalog of unidentified signals was growing. Some of the entries had natural explanations. Some did not. Then that summer, a signal arrived at multiple hydrophones at slightly staggered arrival times. The staggering allowed triangulation. The triangulated source was a broad region of the South Pacific west of the southern tip of South America. The amplitude, back calculated through the standard formula for acoustic spreading loss over open ocean, was higher than anything in the array's catalog of biological events. Higher than the loudest documented blue whale call by a wide margin. The NOAA acoustics team filed it as a new event. Their program manager, Christopher Fox, gave it the informal name the Bloop because of its broad acoustic shape. NOAA, to its credit, made the catalog public from the start. Their website listed unidentified ocean signals alongside identified ones. The Bloop sat next to entries called Julia, Upsweep, Slowdown, Train, and Whistle. Each had its own spectrogram. Each had its own triangulated source region. Each had its own short note about what it might be. Some of the notes were confident, some were not.
From Christopher Fox, NOAA spokesperson, in a 1999 interview. The amplitude is what made it interesting. The shape was unusual, but not without analogues. The amplitude was the part that did not fit anything in our catalog.
The Bloop's spectral envelope shared some features with the calls of large marine animals. The harmonic structure looked, at first glance, like a cetacean vocalization. Whales and dolphins make patterned, structured sounds with harmonics. But the amplitude was the problem. For a biological source to produce a signal this loud, the animal would have to be substantially larger than any documented cetacean. Larger than the largest blue whale. NOAA was careful to flag this constraint in the catalog notes. The press was less careful. By 1999, the Bloop was being described in popular media as a sea monster. The actual scientific claim was both more specific and less dramatic.
From the NOAA PML public catalogue page, archived 2001, the source remains unidentified. The harmonic structure is broadly consistent with biological origin. The amplitude is inconsistent with any known biological source.
That phrasing, consistent with biological origin, inconsistent with any known biological source, sat unresolved on the PMEL catalog page for the better part of a decade. The signal had been recorded. It had not been explained. 3 competing hypotheses gathered around it. Each one tried to close the case. Each one runs into a constraint it cannot satisfy. The shape of the case is the shape of the constraints. Hypothesis 1. A biological source significantly larger than any known cetacean. The harmonic match supports it. The amplitude makes it physically possible. A genuinely large animal producing a low-frequency call could in principle generate the signal. The constraint that breaks it. No animal of the required size has ever been observed, beached, fished, or imaged in any deep ocean survey since the recording. The deep ocean is large, but a population of organisms producing repeated signals at this amplitude would not stay invisible for decades. Hypothesis 2. A classified naval source. The SOSUS network was a Cold War system. The South Pacific in 1997 was large enough and far enough from civilian shipping lanes to test things in without civilian observation. The constraint that breaks it: the spectral envelope does not match the signature of any declassified naval source from the period. The relevant United States Navy archives have been substantially declassified for analytical work since the mid-1990s.
From Christopher Fox, NOAA, in 2002. We checked it against everything in the Navy's released signature library. It does not match. If it is a classified test, the classification is unusually well kept.
Hypothesis 3. A cryoseismic event, specifically a large iceberg cracking or shedding mass somewhere in the Southern Ocean. The proposal first appeared in a NOAA bulletin in 2005 and reached its mature form in 2012. Robert Dziak, the NOAA PMEL oceanographer who led the reanalysis, pointed out that the PML array had begun cataloging icequakes in earnest in the early 2000s. The signatures from confirmed Antarctic Peninsula icequakes recorded between 2005 and 2010 matched the 1997 Bloop in shape, amplitude, and sweep.
From the 2012 NOAA reanalysis statement, the acoustic features of the Bloop are consistent with a large cryogenic event, most likely an iceberg calving or fracturing in the Antarctic Peninsula region.
The case was officially considered resolved in 2012. NOAA's catalog page was updated. Most of the oceanographic community accepted the result. The Bloop in the public record was no longer unidentified. But the constraint on the cryoseismic explanation is more subtle than the constraints on the first two hypotheses. It does not fail outright, it fails in degree. The case is not fully closed, it is mostly closed. Christopher Fox, the original investigator, has been more cautious than the press releases. In interviews in 2014 and again in 2018, Fox has stated that the icequake match is good for many of the PMEL events, but that the 1997 Bloop has a specific spectral feature he is not entirely sold on.
From Christopher Fox, in a 2018 interview, the bulk of the signal looks like an icequake. There is a piece of the spectrum that does not look like an icequake to me. I would not put my own confidence at 100%.
There is also the matter of the original triangulation. The arrival time differences across the array place the source significantly north of the Antarctic Peninsula. The reanalysis required adopting an acoustic refraction model that pulled the location south to fit the icequake hypothesis. The refraction model is not unreasonable. Sound bends as it crosses thermoclines in the deep ocean. But the model adopted in the reanalysis was not fully independently validated for the specific path geometry of the 1997 signal. The equatorial Pacific Autonomous Hydrophone Array was decommissioned in the mid-2000s. The catalog it produced is still online. The Bloop on that catalog is now marked resolved. The PMEL team's other unidentified signals are not. 29 years, one sound, 5,000 kilometers of ocean, a published consensus. And on the record, a principal scientist who would not call it closed. Wednesday's case. 11,500 years ago, on a hilltop in southeastern Turkey, hunter-gatherers carved 15-ton stone pillars with relief images of foxes, scorpions, and vultures. They arranged them in circles. They lived around them for centuries. And then they buried it. Göbekli Tepe, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. See you then.